What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Recruiting Show. I am your host, EJ Holland. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. And also subscribe to the Wolverine.com. We're running a special promo code right now. Use the promo code KICKOFF24 for 50% off your annual membership. You get access to everything insider Michigan recruiting, the team. Obviously, it's game week. So right now is the perfect time to subscribe, get 50% off your annual membership at thewolverine.com. Again, that promo code is kickoff24, which you can see on the screen. And that's for even more great Michigan recruiting coverage and team coverage. By the way, this show is sponsored by Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all things sports, comedy, music, and theater. Gametime believes that the most important moments in life lead to incredible shared experiences. So they built a ticket marketplace that makes it faster and easier to get into your favorite event at a moment's notice. Gametime gives fans access to last-minute tickets to the most popular events in more than 60 cities across the US and Canada. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And with a 2-tap buying option, you'll score tickets quickly and without the hassle. Skip all that hassle and enjoy the moment. Again, you get last-minute ticket buying options. Life should be spontaneous, but you can also, plan ahead. And Gametime has the best price differentiator. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And, Michigan obviously opens the season against Fresno State. And like I said, life should be spontaneous. If you're looking to get last minute tickets for this weekend's game, use the Gametime app. All right. Yep, that's Gametime. Again, use the code ON3 and you actually get $20 off your first purchase. I don't know how much the Michigan Fresno State tickets are going for, but pretty sure that's kind of significant, $20. So again, use that promo code ON3 and check out the Gametime app. Get your last minute tickets for Michigan's home opener. All right, guys. So today's show format is going to be a little different. We won't have our usual Wednesday Q&A show tomorrow. So we're going to do the normal Tuesday show. We're going to cover a couple of topics, and then we will head to the chat box for about 3 to 5 questions. So, like I said, we are going with a different format. I'm going to discuss a few topics and then take 3 to 5 questions from the chat box. And if you want to make sure that your question is answered tonight, leave a super chat. That money goes directly to my travel budget. So it's a little box with the $sign. All right, so let's get into tonight's show. Let's talk about Savion Hiter, one of Michigan's most important recruiting targets in the 2026 class, top 100 running back out of Woodbury Forest in Virginia. Hiter listed his top 5 this week. Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Penn State made the cut for Hiter. No real surprise there. If you watched the show last week or the week before, I mentioned that I thought those would probably be the 5 schools on Hiter's shortlist. So again, no real surprise there. I would say, of those 5 schools, Tennessee and Penn State had the most work to do. I would say Ohio State is the school that Hiter was really high on early on. And if Tony Alford was still at Ohio State, I wouldn't be surprised if the Buckeyes would have been in the pole position coming out of this list. But he's not. Alford is now at Michigan. So I think there's still some work for the Buckeyes to do to get back in the top tier. So I see it as 3 tiers. Tier 1 being Michigan and Georgia, tier 2 being Ohio State, and tier 3 being Tennessee and Penn State. So that, like I said, tier 1, Michigan and Georgia. Those are the two schools that have been consistently top of mind for Savion. Every time I've talked to him, it's always been Michigan and Georgia. Anytime I talk to anybody around his recruitment, it's always talking about Michigan and Georgia. But going into the fall, I would actually give Michigan the advantage. If you ask me which school in that top 5 leads today, I would go with Michigan. The Wolverines hosted him twice this offseason, once in the spring, and obviously he came back for the barbecue at the Big House in July. And Hiter was actually supposed to visit Ohio State that weekend as well and opted to just stay for multiple days at Michigan. Now, a big reason the Wolverines are very high on that list and why I think they lead is Tony Alford. The relationship there is extremely strong. Alford recruited him hard as an underclassman during his time at Ohio State, so there was already a pre-existing relationship when he arrived at Michigan. And Alford has done a fantastic job of recruiting his family. I spent a lot of time with Hiter's father, Rod, a couple of weeks ago, and he told me about how much he respects Alford and how they talk all the time. I've spoken with Hiter's mentor, Coach Adam McCann, and he's talked, so much about how Alford has made an impact on Savion, not just when they talk about things on the field, but just off the field as well, really getting to know him and what he wants to do in life outside of football. And so Alford's just made such a big impact with Savion himself, but also those around him. Alford's a veteran of the game. He's recruited at a high level for a long time, and he's really built a genuine relationship with Hiter. So I think Alford already gave Michigan that in. And what's kind of crazy to me, I know I've gotten criticism for criticizing former Michigan running backs coach Mike Hart, but the difference between running back recruiting then and now is literally night and day, man. What's crazy is Mike Hart obviously was the running backs coach. He was also the area recruiter in Virginia. He never even bothered to offer Savion Hiter. Like, what are we doing here? It's kind of crazy to me that he never offered Hiter. So Alford, already had that incoming from Ohio State, but it's not like Savion already had an offer from Michigan. He didn't know much about Michigan outside of Tony Alford's the running backs coach now, because Mike Hart never offered him. So I say all of that to say that the barbecue at the Big House visit was huge for Hiter, because he not only got to spend more time around Alford, but because he got a look at Michigan beyond just Alford. It's not just, oh, I might go to Michigan because I love Tony Alford. It's, I might go to Michigan because I love Tony Alford and I love the program. So the visit gave him a chance to see what Michigan can offer both on and off the field. He really liked seeing the strength and conditioning presentation. He sat down in the film room with not just Tony Alford, but also Kirk Campbell, got a look at the offense. He got to spend some time with Michigan running back Donovan Edwards. They really clicked. He got a chance to spend time with Michigan quarterback commit Brady Hart, and they're quickly building a relationship. So I think he got more familiar with the city of Ann Arbor. He got to actually go around campus on his multi-day stay, got to go around the city of Ann Arbor, and he just felt the culture and the environment and the vibe there. And I think now, heading into the fall, he has a better grasp for what Michigan has to offer him outside of Alford. And when you combine those two things, when you combine what Michigan does have to offer with that great relationship he has with Alford, it's a recipe for success. Now, Georgia is Georgia. They're not going away anytime soon. They've been one of the true powers of college football. They've produced a ton of notable, NFL running backs, from Todd Gurley to Sony Michel to Noshawn Moreno. Those are guys I can just think of off the top of my head. I mean, there's a lot of running back production coming out of Georgia. Obviously, there's a lot of running back production coming out of Michigan. But I think Savion likes Georgia for a lot of the same reasons he likes Michigan. He has a great relationship with the staff there. He can see himself as an offensive fit. They produce NFL talent, especially at the running back position. So it's going to be a tough battle all the way through. Savion hasn't indicated, when he wants to maybe make a decision, but I do see him taking it at least, past the fall. So I think this was a significant cut, but I think he is going to make his official visits and all that good stuff, and that'll really determine this race. And I know a lot of you guys want to know about NIL. Anytime you're battling Georgia, you automatically, or any SEC school for that matter, you're automatically thinking NIL. I can't say that Michigan probably won't match Georgia with what they do with NIL. But I do think Michigan's already being proactive here. Sean McGee, Michigan's new general manager, is playing a big role with NIL and recruiting. And he had a chance to actually sit down with Savion and his family on the barbecue visit. So they're at least getting out in front of it with NIL. And Michigan is taking steps, forward in the right direction. Again, I don't think they'll match Georgia, but I think they'll at least try to be very competitive and proactive in this recruitment. All right, so that does it for the Savion Hiter segment. Let's go ahead and move on to a bit of negative news. Michigan lost a commitment from top 100 defensive lineman Nathaniel Marshall last week. If you're a subscriber to the Wolverine.com, you should know that I was never bullish on Michigan keeping Nate Marshall. Even when Michigan was trending for Nate Marshall when he originally committed, I refused to put in a prediction for him. I wanted no part of this recruitment. I did not like the vibe that I got from this recruitment. Did not want to touch it. So that's why I always continued to say on the Wolverine.com message board, keep an eye out for Auburn, keep an eye out for Miami. Of course, he goes on his official visit to Auburn, doesn't flip, comes back for the barbecue and says, I'm a Michigan man, and then ends up flipping to Auburn less than a month later. I just never got a good feeling about this one. I always felt like he was going to flip. I always knew NIL was going to be a factor. Sources in the background continued to tell me that NIL was something he was looking for. And, I think Lou Esposito did his best to land Marshall initially and to keep him. So I don't think Marshall flipping to Auburn is any knock on Esposito. He has done a fantastic job in such a short period of time. So Esposito needs to continue getting credit for the job he's done on the recruiting trail. But if you're an assistant at Michigan and you're competing against an Auburn or a Miami or an Oregon, you're fighting against, an NIL school. So like Noah says, was Nate Marshall just about NIL? Yeah. I mean, I would say Marshall has a good relationship with the Auburn coaches. He has a Chicagoland tie to one of the assistants there and all that good stuff. But it's not like he didn't have that at Michigan. Esposito's known his family since before Esposito got to Michigan. That relationship was really strong. He had a close friend going to Michigan and Jalen Williams. The development of defensive linemen is obviously superior at Michigan. I mean, the academics are obviously superior as well. So, yeah, I would say NIL probably played 90% of the role in him flipping to Auburn. But like I said, I never had a good feeling about this. And everybody here should also know that I wasn't overly high on Marshall as a prospect. I received a lot of criticism for being critical of Marshall. I continuously said that I didn't feel like he was a top 100 recruit. I felt like he was a tweener. He's listed at 6'4". He may be that, maybe 265. I didn't know whether he projected really well as an edge or really well as a defensive lineman. It just, I couldn't see him really being elite at either position. I could see him being really good, but not necessarily elite. So I never really had him ranked all that high to begin with. I think Jalen Williams is a better recruit than Nate Marshall. I've said that on my previous videos. If you go back, I said that I saw Jalen Williams and Nate Marshall on the same swing I did back to Chicago. And I thought Jalen Williams was better when I saw them last year. So I know this, hurts from a rankings perspective, but I think Michigan can find a tweener defensive lineman anywhere. They can hit the portal, or Esposito did a great job of, mining for talent and developing talent at Western Michigan. I think he'll be just fine finding somebody at Michigan to replace Marshall. So who are the replacement candidates? I wrote a long list of potential replacements over at thewolverine.com. If you go to our Into the Blue store, you can see the long list of potential candidates to replace Marshall. And right now, by the way, if you missed it at the top of the show, you can get 50% off your annual membership at thewolverine.com. If you want the inside scoop, if you want to know how I'm feeling about Nate Marshall, but so this commitment doesn't come as a surprise. You know, you had the other sites take shots at me for being negative and all this stuff. If you just want real recruiting information and not some Kool-Aid from, you know, your local Oompa Loompa, you can head over to thewolverine.com right now. Use the promo code KICKOFF24 and you'll get 50% off your annual membership over at thewolverine.com. Again, that's a promo code KICKOFF24. And now's the perfect time to do it. Not only do you get premium recruiting information, but you also get insider team information heading into the season opener against Fresno State. So again, head over to thewolverine.com for even more information on everything Michigan football. I'm not going to talk about every potential candidate that Michigan is tracking, but just to throw out a couple of names that I mentioned. And I'm not super familiar with these prospects, so I can't be like, oh, yeah, man, this guy's going to be a steal or something like that. But two Big Ten prospects that are committed elsewhere that I'll throw to y'all. One is Kyler Garcia. He's committed to Indiana out of the Nashville area. He's a guy that kind of has the same type of measurables at Marshall, or at least that's what he's listed as on his profile. He's a 3-star. You see his rankings not super high. He's actually in the 1000s in the industry ranking, but you know, he had some pretty decent offers: Wisconsin, Purdue, Louisville. Ended up picking Indiana this summer. And, you know, I think Marshall is listed at 6'4", 265. He's listed at 6'4", 256. So like I said, kind of similar measurables there. And also, like I said, he's from the Nashville area. He's part of the NPA training program. And if that sounds familiar, the NPA training program worked with Junior Colson, Mason Curtis, who's currently on the team, and Eli Owens, who's committed as a tight end. So, you know, he's definitely one to watch. And another name I'll throw out there is 3-star Illinois commit Cameron Brooks. Yeah, Illinois has done a really good job of finding some under the radar defensive linemen. Cameron Brooks is from the Chicagoland area. And even though you just saw Marshall flip away, Esposito has done a really nice job historically recruiting in Chicagoland. He landed Jalen Williams this cycle and just has so many connections there. So Cameron Brooks, another guy ranked in the 1000s, but a prospect that Michigan is tracking. And like I said, committed to Illinois, which usually does a good job at finding diamonds in the rough along the defensive line. All right, guys, before we move on to questions, we have a message from our other sponsor, and that is My Perfect Franchise. Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career into your own hands? Or are you an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Andy Luedecke can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helped others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to you. So what do you have to lose? Head over to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more. Hit up Andy at 404-973-9901. or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. He'll even set up a Zoom with you. So, you know, like I said, if you've ever dreamed of owning a franchise, Starbucks or a Panera or Chick-fil-A, whatever your dreams are, Andy can help them come true. Just head over to myperfectfranchise.net. And like I said, give him a call at 404-973-9901. or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. All right, man. We have a super chat here from Funky Bunch 3. And he says, what top 100 guys on the defensive side of the ball do we have a real chance to get in the 2026 recruiting class? So top 100 in the 2026. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I'm going to cheat because my brain is fried today for some reason. But one guy I'll throw out right off the bat is Isaiah Simmons. He's a linebacker out of Norfolk, Virginia. I just saw him last week, and he's not a top 100 guy in the industry, but he is a top 100 guy when it comes to On3. And next year is a critical cycle for new Michigan linebackers coach Brian Jean Mary. He's kind of struggled this cycle. He only has one commit in Chase Taylor, who I think might end up being an edge. There aren't a lot of targets out there outside of Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. So 2026 is such a crucial class for him. Isaiah Simmons is an intriguing guy. He's the type of prospect that Jesse Minter would have really liked, because Minter was enamored with positionless athletes on the defensive side of the ball that could do lots of different things. That's Isaiah Simmons. He's 6 foot 190, so he's kind of undersized for being a true backer. But man, he is such a fun player to watch. I had a chance to go watch him practice, and he just flies around the field. He's super fast, super versatile, really athletic, really long kid that has the frame to add some weight. So he's really intriguing. Michigan has a legitimate shot there. He's actually making his first visit for the game against USC. So I think once he visits there, you'll see the On3 recruiting prediction machine kind of start to change there. I think another guy I'll throw out there that I've seen recently, actually last week, was Aiden Harris, top 100 defensive lineman out of North Carolina. So Aiden actually visited Michigan this summer. So a couple months ago, he was on campus. He had a chance to meet with Esposito, told me a lot of positive things about how they're growing their relationship. He's ranked as the number 2 defensive lineman, number 35 overall prospect in the country. Now, Ohio State is the heavy favorite in this recruitment, but he told me Michigan moved into his top 5 after that visit. And he's actually hoping to get back to campus at some point this fall. So, he's definitely one to watch. And Aiden actually has a twin brother, Andrew Harris, who also holds a Michigan offer, and he's an on 300 edge. So not quite, top 100, but he is a guy to monitor as well. That's highly touted. As far as other guys, I'm trying to scroll here. Jake Cruel, definitely one I saw a few weeks ago at IMG Academy. So Jake Cruel just transferred to IMG, but he is originally from Florida. He visited this summer as well. He is a really intriguing edge prospect. He has a great relationship with Esposito early on. Michigan obviously doing really well, landing talent out of IMG Academy, having Donovan Johnson and Caden Strayhorn this cycle. So both of those guys are going to be in his ear throughout the fall, I'm sure. So, he's definitely a guy that I would keep an eye on, and, kind of sticking with IMG. And there you see his profile. And his recruitment seems pretty open as well. Right now you see UCF at the top, but sticking with IMG, another guy I'll throw up is Zach Ford. And, he's a guy that's been to Michigan already in the past a few times. I think he's been there 3 times already. He's a top 100 defensive back, and more than likely projects as a true nickel next cycle. But Zach Ford has family connections to Ann Arbor. He has, several family members that live there, even though he's originally from the West Coast. He's been at IMG for, a couple of years now. So he has gotten close to guys like Strayhorn and Johnson. And, both of them are recruiting him hard already. He told me after Strayhorn committed, Strayhorn, was on the phone with him right away, trying to get him over to Ann Arbor with him. So yeah, and I like Zach Ford. He kind of seems like a Michigan type of kid, just a really cool kid, really team first type of guy as well. You know, he was he's a captain for IMG as an underclassman, which I think is kind of hard to do. So I think that speaks volumes about him. So he would be another top 100 defensive guy that Michigan is high up on the list for early on. You see Alabama and Michigan are the top two teams on the on3 RPM. All right, so let's answer a few more questions. Let's go back to the top with Tyson Smith, and he says, what's the latest on Babalola? So obviously, Tyson Smith referring to five-star offensive tackle Andrew Babalola. It is August 27th, and Babalola has yet to make a decision. Remember, he was supposed to make one earlier this month, decided to push things back, and now the time frame is anywhere between now and September 6th. So a decision is still expected to come soon, but it still doesn't seem like this recruitment is trending one way or the other. Stanford still has the heavy lead on the on3 recruiting prediction machine, but based on information we've been able to gather over the last week or so, it seems like Stanford's kind of fading. And our national analyst, Steve Wilfong, who actually has a pick in for the Cardinal, said the same thing. He doesn't, feel like Stanford has the same type of optimism that it once did earlier this summer. So I think the door is definitely open for Michigan. But at the same time, one school you don't see there on the on3 RPM, for those that are, able to watch here, Auburn. They're not listed anywhere here. They have no % chance when it comes to the on3 recruiting prediction machine, but they've kind of surged up here. And as we talked about with Nate Marshall, we know what Auburn's doing. They have plenty of NIL to offer. Now, NIL hasn't really been a factor in the Babalola recruitment, but as we know, NIL can quickly become one for any recruit. And I think, Auburn has risen up as a true threat. So right now, I don't think he ends up at Stanford, but it wouldn't be surprising to see him end up at Michigan or Auburn. I can't tell you that Michigan has momentum. I think there's cautious optimism around Ann Arbor, but I would say there's probably cautious optimism around Auburn as well. So that's kind of the latest, is simply that Stanford's lost some steam, Michigan has remained consistent, and Auburn is suddenly a real contender to steal him here late. All right, let's do a couple of others. And Production says, will Michigan get to 20 commits in the 2025 class? Yeah, I do believe Michigan will get to 20 commits. I think they'll take around 22, 23 commits. So might not be the full 25. Michigan is definitely, when you look at remaining needs, Michigan is definitely going to take another slot receiver. They have to fill that void that's been left by Philip Wright. So they're going to evaluate some senior film. They've already been in contact with a few slot receivers nationally. So that's one spot for sure. And again, they have 17 commits right now. So a slot receiver. The second, need is offensive tackle. Now, Babalola is obviously the hope for the Wolverines, but if they miss out on Babalola, I still think they'll look to get another offensive lineman and particularly an offensive tackle in this class. Definitely another defensive lineman. Obviously, you have to replace Nate Marshall, and they might add 2 defensive linemen. To be honest, they were looking at adding another one before Marshall flipped. So they need 1 or 2 other defensive linemen. Obviously, they need another linebacker. I mean, come on. You can't just take Chase Taylor. So right now, the focus has been on Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, but Brian G. Mary is slowly but surely starting to expand the board. He offered a North Carolina commit today, so we'll see. And then corner, Michigan is going to take another corner. I talked about Donovan Starr being a realistic flip candidate from Auburn. So, I think that those are the positions of needs. They'll keep in contact with some other corners as well, but a slot receiver, a tackle, 1 or 2 more defensive linemen, a linebacker, and a corner. I mean, that's still 5 or 6 more spots, which puts you at 22 or 23. And they could take a specialist as well. Michigan recently offered a kicker, and they've been, extending preferred walk-ons to a handful of long snappers. So they could add, a scholarship specialist, depending on how things kind of work out. So that's kind of what numbers look like, what remaining needs looks like as well. And last one we'll answer is Les Austin, and he says, "What's up with linebacker recruiting?" Yeah, so like I said, it's slowly but surely coming along. Right now, the focus remains on Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who has no real decision timeline. He plans to make fall visits to Florida and Texas. He'll actually be at Florida this weekend. And then, from there, he might see some of the schools he took official visits to, like Notre Dame or Michigan. But there's just been kind of nothing that's really changed here during the dead period with Owusu-Boateng. I think we have to wait and see what fall visits he actually makes. How big of a contender does Florida become? How big of a contender does Texas become? Is Notre Dame going to stay the constant in this recruitment? Is Michigan going to be able to rebuild some of the momentum they built up on Victor's Weekend, or has that been lost? There's just so many questions surrounding Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng as we enter the fall. And like I said, Brian G. Mary is going to continue to recruit him hard. And from there, he'll recruit a few others. He offered a kid committed to North Carolina today, recently offered a UCF commit. So, he's tracking some others, but the focus has remained here on Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. All right, guys, we've gone over time, so I appreciate it. We won't have a Wednesday Q&A tomorrow, unfortunately, but I will be back next week. And if you thought this show was too short, then you can head over to thewolverine.com. Remember to use that promo code kickoff24 for 50% off your annual membership over at thewolverine.com. And there you go. Promo code kickoff24. It's game week. So now is the perfect time to subscribe to thewolverine.com. Also, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. Like I said, we'll see you guys next week.